Hello and welcome to another episode of Smaulgld Subscribers Sound Off. Today I have with me Salivate Metal. You all know him, you know his voice, you love his work. Sal, how you doing today?
All right, sir. How you doing? It's good to be here.
Good to
An
hear your
honor.
voice. Great to have you. Now, Sal, I have you on because your channel intrigues me and thousands of others who are interested in the precious metal space. Before we get into the details of your work, can you let us know when you started, why you started, and how has it been going since?
Well, I thought you were going to ask me about my first kiss and my favorite color, but
We're going to get to that.
all right. I started the channel about 2013, January 29th, I think was the date. And what got me started was several other early, what I kind of typically refer to as sort of the first or maybe second generation of YouTubers talking about precious metals. And there's this one guy who had a Russian accent that I forget the channel name. He's actually made somewhat of a comeback, Gruppenheimer or something like that. And so I started out with trying to sort of mimic that style, just showcasing precious metals because people tended to enjoy that. And I had been involved in purchasing precious metals for quite some time. And I thought, well, now was the time to do it. And I thought it would be fun. And so that's kind of what got me into it. And since then, the community has really grown and become more communal, because back in that day, it really wasn't. It was just people showing off precious metals and people commenting on the channel, on the videos, but there wasn't really the sense of community. And I think since around 2013, it kind of grew into that. So yeah.
Well, that's excellent. You know, I notice with the community that you've developed that you have a good esprit de corps amongst the people. And part of that is, I believe, that many of your subscribers, followers, are interested in the history of precious metal, the beauty of precious metals, and you have a knack for showing off the metals, bringing stories to light, news stories that you may have dug up from a find that happened, a Roman find, or a new issuance from the Perth Mint, and you really get that discussion going, and you don't spend as much time on trying to predict when gold and silver are going to break out and go skyrocketing. And I think your philosophy is that the precious metals speak for themselves. Can you speak to that?
Yes, indeed. I mean, there is some time when I may make a very light prediction, just sort of in fun, but I certainly don't hold myself to it. I don't take myself too seriously with those types of things. But yeah, I've always been of the philosophy that, silver and gold have been money for thousands of years. And since the times of Lydia, so they do speak.
Was that your first kiss?
That was my first kiss.
Lydia.
Yes, indeed. There we go. So now we've covered that base. Very good. And so it's that, to me, it's there's a lot of history with these precious metals, and that history, if you know about it and you've learned about it and you've seen it, it's not just from 1913 when the Federal Reserve Act, or when the dollar came in. That's a very small portion of time. Silver and gold have been money for much longer than that. And going back to the stories and stuff that I review, because the channel has sort of evolved where I show a bit more of that. Although as of the recording of this interview, I just posted a video about another kind of a neat set that I purchased that I like. I still like to show precious metals that I purchased, but a lot of the articles and stuff, yes, I'll find them on my own, but I get them also from subscribers like you. You have sent me some great stories, and other subscribers, and I try to credit those who do send this to me. So I appreciate all the viewers who kind of understand what the channel is about, that contribute content such as yourself. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. It's great because it's a contribution that everybody gets to share, and it's not the spreading of doom about the dollar's going to collapse, China's going to collapse, something's going to fall on your head, and you'd be glad you had your gold or silver. I mean, it's those we talked about in the pre-show that both of us view gold as insurance, or silver possibly as insurance, but it's the one insurance policy that you can actually enjoy looking at, talking about, sharing with your friends. You don't go online and share the details of your car insurance policy. But I think that is what I really like about your channel, is that there's an understanding, but beyond an understanding of gold and silver as a monetary instrument, an insurance instrument, but an appreciation of the metal, the work that goes into pulling it out of the ground, the artwork. Over the years, they haven't just minted bars, just bars and rounds. They're always adorned with some type of some interesting character, piece of nature. What were on the Lydian coin, Sal?
Yeah, it's really amazing from the old ancient coins. In fact, as I'm speaking to you here, I've got in my hand an ancient silver coin that probably could have came from the Lydia period, and then also have a Sobek, a high relief 2-ounce round from Provident Metals that is deeply incused and high relief, that uses modern technology and intricate die work, engraving to pull the design out. And it's just amazing the different types of ways that technology is used to bring out different aspects of security features with the designs of these pieces. And like you said, you know, it's an insurance policy that you can show off. It's an insurance policy that you can appreciate and adore for the pure beauty of it, notwithstanding and not needing to even talk about the potential premiums on this particular round, or hey, it's got a limited mintage of 800 pieces. It's going to skyrocket because of the numismatic value. Well, who cares? In my view, I'm protected by the intrinsic value of the piece, and I enjoy it. And I think that's one of the things that I try to articulate on the channel.
It does come out. You know what I wonder, if you have a thought on this? It seems that a lot of people, at least in America, started to really develop the concept of accumulating silver, stacking, and I wonder if those people came from a numismatic background. My guess is not, because they don't. Most of them are interested in ounces, not as much as they are in the physical beauty. Do you find that, or am I?
Well, it's fascinating because I think that since 2013, and I think that's the year that we really saw an influx, especially into the communal space of YouTube, after the 2011 high of silver. There was this continued buzz around silver because the prices are starting to come back down, and people were expecting that, hey, this is a great time to buy because they're starting to come back down because they're going to go right back up again. We were all wrong. I even cashed out my my previous job's IRA and bought gold and silver with it, thinking that I was getting it at a really good deal. Well, it went down much further than that. But the thing is people that start out accumulating ounces, in almost every single situation on YouTube that I've seen, they have turned into collectors. In other words, you got a guy.
Interesting. Yes.
You got a guy that's buying a whole bunch of silver eagles and he's just stacking silver eagles. They may continue to stack, but they also appreciate the beauty of the piece that they get. Here's an example. There's a guy named Silver Slacker. And I always joke with him. He's got a very popular, his channel is sprung up. It came after my channel, and it has way surpassed my channel in viewership and interaction, because he shows some really cool things. But he is a hardcore, literally a stacker. And he's anything but a slacker, but there's a reason behind his name. But he has accumulated these pieces, but he's buying them not only for their weight, but also their beauty. He's into poured silver especially, but he enjoys it. He just posted a video recently, within the last few days. He bought 434 ounces of constitutional silver so he could run his hands through it. And that's pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, now, I think I have a recollection that you have poured some silver. Is that true?
Yes. And
can you explain how that works to our listeners?
Yeah. And it's interesting how this came about. I think it was 2004, late 2013, 2014. A friend of mine happened to have a map torch and some map gas and torch. And so we would bring some silver. Me and some friends would get together and pour some silver just for fun. And my first video on it was, I think it was called Self-Poured Bullionaire. So in other words, my first self-pouring, and I've got the piece right here. I have it as a desk piece. And I never poured it to sell. I just liked the fact that I could pour my own silver just for fun. And that has tended to spark off sort of a revolution in the precious metals. Now there's a whole sub-community of silver pourers out there who are doing it and selling it, like Hi-Ho Silver. There's Pit Bullion. There's High Five Silver. There's Tomoko's Enterprise. I mean, the list goes on, and they have their own sort of sub community within the YouTube space where they just pour silver. And now they're casting it now too. They're making little silver statues. It's wild.
And they're all very unique. They're not like when you have a minted coin where your rarity might be because there's a little imperfection. Here, they're all very unique items.
Yes.
Can you tell us how you where you get the silver to pour from? What, all the technical details. What's the process of making a poured ingot?
Well, for us, it was very unique. We actually got silver hair. This friend of mine had from a local coin shop bought these spindles of silver threads that were from a nuclear submarine that was used to wrap the coils in something related to nuclear energy. And they were sold, and he tested some of them were 999, but others of them were much less pure, we found out while pouring it. And that's where a lot of it started. But then otherwise, we'd get generic rounds or something like that, just old bars. And there's a playlist on my channel that shows some of the silver that we use to constitute some of these. And again, these are just for fun. We didn't sell any of this stuff or make anything, other than I did do a 10-ounce bar that ended up auctioning off, and a kind subscriber actually bought the bar and with the whole purpose of sending it back to me as a gift. And it wasn't even my silver to start with. So it was a very kind gesture of this particular subscriber. But the one video, we used constitutional silver. We took some dimes and quarters and again, this wasn't mine. I wouldn't actually do that. But this other guy that was with us wanted to melt down some 90%. So we did that. So yeah, it's kind of neat.
And when you melt down 90% silver, how do you separate out the copper?
You don't. I mean, for us, I mean, again, we didn't do it to sell it. It does kind of, in a way, just the process itself, when it melts, it tends to kind of separate, sort of self-assays, roughly, and or self-refines, I guess is more the term. And so you see some copper spotting around in some places where some parts of the bar maybe have a little more copper pooling up because the variance in temperatures that it takes. And by the way, copper is something else that's being talked about in the community, or in the pouring community. Losing Louie is another YouTuber who has actually poured some copper, and that's hard to do because copper solidifies much quicker.
Have you ever poured any gold?
Yes, there was the guy that came with us that had some gold, and that was very difficult because it was he had put some 14 karat in there, 18 karat, and 14 karat is just over a half percentage of gold. So there's a lot of copper and silver in there. So never pure gold, but we did pour a little bit of gold in our experimentations there. Yeah.
And is it a higher? I don't know. Are there higher melt points for silver and gold, or?
I think gold is a little bit higher because of the fact that it wasn't pure gold. But I think if it was pure gold, I think gold has a lower melting point, I believe, as a pure gold than silver. But I could be wrong on that. But but it's hard to tell because with us, it took a lot longer to melt down the gold because of the low purity of it, which means that the rest of it was mainly copper and some silver.
So where you mentioned once, I watched a show that you had done. You had gone to a coin show, and I don't know if this is a one-off or you go to them all the time. Do you attend coin shows often, or was that just a one-off, the one that I saw?
There's a coin show that happens in my local area twice a year that I go to. And then I go to the Baltimore Coin Show. I haven't been to the Baltimore Coin Show in a while. I think last year was the last fall, I think was the last time I went.
That was the one I saw. And you'd mentioned there was lower attendance. Is that what you're seeing in the one by your house, or is it that's just Baltimore because people maybe don't want to go to Baltimore?
Yeah. It does wonder, because that was actually shortly after the riots that happened there. So yeah, I can't help but wonder. But there's some fear of numismatics dying off in a way, because there's a lot less of the youth getting involved in numismatics, with the coins, and then there's any kind of collector value with some of the older coins. And we're seeing some of that, but there's some appreciation. I'm kind of seeing some of that recover to a point, which is gratifying. But a lot of baby boomers are retiring, and so they're selling a lot of their coins, and I think that's flooding the market. And when that happens, prices tend to devalue, because these coins are starting to hit the marketplace again. But with pre-33 gold, especially, we've seen quite a reduction in price on a lot of those pieces. In fact, at that very coin show, and a lot of the pre-33 gold has been repatriated. A lot of that gold went over to Europe, and so that is coming back into the United States, which floods the market with those coins. And of course, that's somewhat similar to what some people think could happen with the quantitative easing that occurred. A lot of that money that was printed with QE2 and QE3 went over to Europe. And there's some fear that cash could come back and flood the market, devaluing the dollar. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but essentially the foretaste of that did occur with pre-33 gold. A lot of that gold came back. The difference would be with the dollar. If those dollars that were been printed come back, well, you have a lot more dollars. That's going to devalue the dollar. With gold, the worst thing that's going to happen is the premiums may disappear.
Right, but you still have an ounce of gold or whatever.
Still have an ounce of gold. That's right, and that is one of those situations that I like to refer to, where gold and silver speak for themselves. Their intrinsic value is historical.
But what I'm still struggling with is we're moving into, as you mentioned, baby boomers grew up, tended to naturally just gravitate towards items in their hand. I mentioned at one point that I had collected stamps as a child, and every town had a coin and stamp dealer. And most coin dealers don't deal in stamps anymore. I was surprised to find that some of the first issuance stamps that I had bought, I finally dug them up back in the late 70s, early 70s, were basically worth nothing. And I was looking at an article the other day, what's a 1969 United States proof set worth? And at the time, it would have set you back $5, and you would think by now it would be worth $30, $40, $50. It's not. It's worth $7, even though there is a 40% silver $half in it.
Yeah, it really is amazing. A lot of those proof sets, they come in and out of the market so much that the numismatic value or the collector value just is pretty much, they've given up on trying to really track it or keep up with it. What's known as the dealer is something called the gray sheet, and the gray sheet is a dealer online catalog that's released weekly that basically keeps track of those prices. Well, just in the last week or so, that publication is moving from weekly to monthly, and because it's changing so much, it's not worth taking the time to try to keep up with these prices. And with the advent of like eBay and all these other online markets where these particular sets are reflooding the markets, it's crazy. And I collected the clad proofs and the silver proof sets for the statehood quarters. Just why? Because I wanted to, and I liked the series. Just wanted to have them. And I was kind of excited when the 1999 proof sets were skyrocketing. Those things went for $400 at one time, and now they've just tanked. They've tanked. and and a lot of those clad sets you can get now for right above face value practically, whereas you pay $20 for a clad proof set, and now you can get it for a couple bucks over face value.
And people probably realize that, break them out, and spend them.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing. In fact, I was at my coin show or coin shop the other day, and I got a proof Washington quarter in change, a proof Washington statehood quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, I once got a proof. I think it was the Hawaiian quarter. It was beautiful, but it's not worth anything. It's nice. It's worth a quarter. And I wish they had given me the $5 America the Beauty $5 Hawaiian coin. Those are worth a lot, aren't they?
Yeah, those commanded quite a premium one time. There's actually an organization in Hawaii that's a club or something that's dedicated to the Hawaiian volcanoes. And of course, the Hawaiian volcanoes are making quite a bit of news as of late. But they pretty much cornered the market on those, causing the price to really skyrocket for those coins. But they have since come down in value as well. It's just amazing.
That one was a 20,000 mintage. That was the lowest mintage to date, I think, at the time. That was also helping.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. There's others that were where the mintage was less. It just depends. There's the Vapor Blast P version, which is the collector version of the mint sales. I think sales those are limited to 25,000. The regular bullion version, some of those though it's less, and some of those are more. If I'm not mistaken, the Hawaii volcanoes actually they minted more of them and more were sold. But it's kind of like a mini Hunt Brothers type situation. But it was this organization in Hawaii that accumulated all of these. So they may have made more, but there were less in the marketplace to sell, so it commanded this premium because people thought it was rarer than it was, and they suspected that these collectors in Hawaii, or these people in Hawaii who weren't coin collectors, they just liked the coin because it represented what their interest was, which is these volcanoes. And it just caused the market to go up. That's one thing I always tell people too, and I posted a video about this. Rarity does not necessarily does not equate with value. Just because, I'll give you, for instance, I have these little, they're called the Fortitude round, right? It's a limited mintage of 575 pieces, and they're not worth very much. You know what I'm saying? Right. And they're not in high demand. It's all about demand, and they're not selling very well. And by the way, I'm not a sovereign nation. It wasn't made by the Perth Mint, and it's got a very limited market, and they'll probably never ever be worth anything other than just the silver that they're printing on. But that's okay, or there can be, or maybe even a better example would be the high relief gold. 2014 elephants, 1 ounce gold that's sold for $4,000 for 1 ounce, and there's a limited mintage of 10, and that limited mintage of 10 means that nobody knows about it. So if nobody knows about it hardly, or the very select few who do know about it, they're not going to spend $4,000 for this 1 ounce gold coin with just like $1,100 worth of gold in it at the time, and expect to see any demand for it in the secondary market because it's too rare. Nobody knows about it.
No, that's true. Yeah, one of the ones that I always use, I use one personal and I use another one from the U.S. Mint. My artwork is rarer than Picasso's. And
right.
Picasso's made thousands of pieces, and his is worth millions, and mine isn't worth much. But the one I liked, which I found a few years back, was as a child, I used to collect the Lincoln pennies. Right. And I knew, like, by heart, the 1 penny you had to have was the 1909 SVDB, yep. Which stood for Victor D. Brenner, and that had 484,000 made, and I thought that is the rarest thing you're ever going to find. 484,000. You can't do better than that. And that penny, I don't know, that penny will cost you in terrible condition $1,000. It goes up to like $2,000 if you have it in a really good position, a really good condition. But then I was looking at, if you go back to some of the barbered quarters, which no one collects. The 1913 Barber quarter had, you guessed it, 484,000 made. And that cost $15.
Right.
So there's no interest. This is where I get into. We could discuss briefly the people that keep touting the gold-silver ratio. That somehow, because the conventional wisdom is that silver is more plentiful than gold, but it's more plentiful in a ratio, and therefore the price should reflect the relative rarities. And I'm not sure that that's the only thing you take into account. What's your view on the gold-silver ratio? Is it too high? Is it too low? Or is it just about right?
Well, you make a great point. You're exactly right. The silver to gold ratio, it's at abnormal highs of 80 to about 79 to 80 to 1 now. And yes, I recognize there's some manipulation that's going on in the paper markets and likewise, I think that most of us can agree that there is some of that. But I do believe in the natural market. And I believe that by and large that there's no way they can suppress it that much, because I see silver as becoming much more of a duality type of metal, with its being recognized as a monetary metal or a hedge, but it also it's so versatile with its uses in the biomedical field and technology and the like. So we're seeing that it's commodity, and gold is seen as a commodity too, but gold is treasured more. And I look at it this way, that we will never ever see the natural ratio. I firmly believe we'll never see the natural ratio of 9 to 1, 9 to 10 to 1, or the natural price ratio or whatever, 15 to 1. So there's that level. And then there's some people in the silver community that will die on the sword with their belief that they're going to go on parity with each other at 1 to 1. And I think that's just ridiculous, because, there's plenty of silver out there. And by the way, if silver ever gets to a point where it goes up above a certain dollar amount, we will reconstitute it. In other words, I posted a story about how this university had done some research and found a way to recover silver from sewage. And if they can find a way to do that, they can harvest it from ocean water. They can do whatever. It's just a matter of economic viability.
Right.
I went totally solar back in 2015. Why? Was it because I'm an environmentalist? And no, in fact, I even joked that when the solar panels were delivered to my home, I joked with some people and said, you know what? I think I should just put these in my crawl space just to piss off Al Gore. But there's about 20 grams of silver in each of those panels. But the technology became to the point where it was economically viable for me to invest in it, and that's the same thing with silver, and silver will be recovered and reconstituted if from these things that are sent to landfills and things like that, if it becomes economically viable to do so. It just so happens it'll be a case where it's worth more. If it goes up to $100 an ounce or whatever, you better bet your bottom dollar they're going to find a way to go into those landfills and recoup all those old iPhone 3s and get the silver out of them, Yeah,
well, iTunes, but Apple has a machine that does that, and you give your machine back to them, they can extract the precious metals very quickly. But you mentioned if the prices were to rise, what would naturally happen is not just your reconstitution of silver, but also innovations would either dictate that they use less than 20 grams of silver per panel, maybe 10 grams, or they change the architecture so that they can use something else. Because silver right now is ideal because it's ideal for its properties and its price. And if its price becomes not ideal, but its properties are ideal, they do something else. So,
and they're already there's research and development firms are already looking at ways of, like, you've probably heard of graphene.
Mm-hmm. Which is a carbon base. Go ahead.
Yep. That's right. That's one thing that could threaten the silver being used. Aluminum for solar panels is something else that's been talked about. I've seen on some of the research I've done. So yeah, those are the kind of things that we have to keep in mind. The technology is changing. You can do more with less these days. And I mean, look, just the whole photography industry
went totally away, and the demand for silver went away. No one's going to collect graphene, though. And no one's going to collect aluminum. And no one's going to make coins out of graphene or aluminum.
That's right. And that's just it. Because of all these things that happen, and with the changes in technology, does not take away from silver's unique properties as money, and that it will continue to be used in some manner or form as a commodity, as well as, I mean, gold is used in, you know, for connections. It's used in the space. I mean, it doesn't corrode, it doesn't erode. It's, you know, it's got some very unique properties.
It's even better than silver for space, because you cannot replace anything if it tarnishes in space.
That's right. Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep. So yeah, and that's just it. So people, and there's a lot of people, I know I hear from both sides criticisms of you know, when I mention, you know, I've been accused of being a silver pumper, and I'm being accused of being a dismisser of silver as being you know, valuable. You know, I've heard it from both sides because of the stances I've taken. And actually, it's not just with silver, but precious metals in general. You know, I've learned through the years, you know, and that's the great thing about this community is, you know, you learn to question things, and I am adamant about, you know, I think the truth should have no agenda. And I think that you have been instrumental in your reporting and in your videos, and really getting to the nitty gritty and finding evidence and detailing the things, especially with what you had exposed regarding the gold backed yuan, renminbi, and the like, and how people were taking that all out of proportion. I think you blew the lid wide open on that and really caused a lot of ripples in the silver community, or the community in general with precious metals. And I applaud you for that.
Well, thank you. You know, what happens with people once they develop a liking for something, it becomes like your mother or a religion, and you can't see anything bad about it. But I have to step back and say, silver is not my mother. It's not my religion. I like them. I can see their value. I can see their value on a variety of levels. But I can also see BS when people try to make them out to be something far more. You get to the point, I hear people say, oh, he sold his silver, he's a traitor. I was like, no, you've already gone too far if you're starting to think that way, that somehow someone's being a traitor because they don't believe in precious metals. But, you know, you go back to, we're talking about properties. Try giving your significant other a aluminum ring and see what happens to you. I mean, it's not... So there are certain immutable properties, there are certain things that sell itself, but the hype and the nonsense around it and the cherry picking of data, that disturbs me. And inventing these scenarios where China's going to do this and Russia's going to do that and the BRICS are going to go, and somehow everything's going to go skyrocketing. I don't view gold and silver as speculative metals. Silver maybe, but definitely not gold. You're not supposed to. If you want to speculate, buy miners, buy cryptocurrencies, buy biotech stocks, buy land futures in a Florida swamp. I don't understand the mentality that you're going to get rich.
In fact, I posted a video that was relatively controversial, that how silver and gold are not investments at all. You know, they don't pay dividends. They are simply insurance and hedge. Yep.
They're not meant to be. Well, before we go, I definitely have to ask you a very serious question, Sal.
Yes, sir.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color. I was waiting the whole interview for this.
It was a setup. The whole thing was a setup for this question.
Yes, for this one question. My favorite color is probably blue, like a sky blue.
I thought you were going to say silver. Or
silver. Well, yeah. Well, you know, but here's the thing: silver is not a color. Any of the now gold, I guess, is a color, but silver is based off of is really a reflection of of black or white, and black or white are neutral, you know, or gray. Those are the absence of color.
All right, so blue
How's that
it
for a
is.
philosophical answer for that?
I have a pencil in my mouth thinking about it, just wondering. I'm ruminating and chewing. It's going to take a while for me to think this one through. But Sal, thank you very much indeed for joining me today on the Smaulgld Subscribers Sound Off series. And can you let our listeners know, if they don't know already, where they can find you?
All right. Well, you can find me in the bathroom of a truck stop. No, I'm teasing. YouTube.com/Salivate Metal, or if you just go into YouTube and type Salivate Metal, that should be the first link that pops up. And I certainly want to extend a huge multitude of gratitude to you, Smaulgld, for all you do in the community. And I want to thank everyone else for taking the time to listen to this interview.
Well, thank you very much, and I want to extend a multitude of gratitude to you as well. And we hope to have you come back very soon. You willing to do that?
I'm willing to do that, and I'm going to love to have you on one of my live streams as well. We have some fun. We interview to try to promote other channels in the community. We take questions from some questions that I have, and also from the community. So if you're open to that, I'd love to have you as a guest. It'd be an honor.
All right, let's do it. And thank everyone for listening. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.